And we're back again here in Austin, Texas for the World Championship Series as StarCraft 2 as we make our way towards crowning our second circuit champion of the year. I'm Nathanius. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you're all having a fantastic Friday wherever you are in this great big old world. I'm joined by none other than Fear Dragon to my left. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well, Nate. Had a fun first series, lots of memes. And now I get to actually jump into the NA players. That's why I'm really here.
All right. That's why we brought Ravi here to help try and see if we can figure out NA. I'm glad we have our WCS Challenger boys up on the desk for this match. Jeff in control Robinson, you're really good on the desk, so they brought you back here for
I'm always here.
match.
I just have so much to offer.
Is that it? That's all you got?
That's what I got for you.
All right. Well, with that being said, we do have another awesome match coming up as we do move into our North American players. We've got Semper going up against DnS, which should be a really awesome series. Terran versus Protoss is fun. It's a matchup that's talked about a lot. No, having a North American. Okay,
well, he said North American players with an S.
We're getting into the North American players.
Oh, we're getting inside of them.
We're dipping into the pool.
I mean, I don't mind.
So, with that being said, Terran versus Protoss, it's a matchup that it's been talked about a lot recently due to the reverting of the Marauder nerf. So Marauders, they're quite good again against everything, and by that I mean really good.
Semper plays such a biocentric style a lot of the time that I feel like he's really loving that Marauder buff. In fact, he's just looking really strong right now. I think this is the Semper that actually does well, not the Semper that you kind of like, he's in school, he's pursuing a law degree, he's not really going to do anything. This is Semper, I'm done, I get summer off and I just get to focus on StarCraft. Cool.
I don't know, Ravi. We made a big deal about talking about how good Semper can be in WCS Challenger. And he did show glimmers of that, but this is DnS. This is one of the best Protosses in all of Europe. I think Semper's about to get put down pretty hard.
Okay, I can see your points, but counterpoint, Semper is playing really well today.
That's it? That's all you got?
But why? What makes DnS?
He's playing well.
What makes DnS better than Semper other than being European?
Well, on a regular basis, I think if you think of the non-Korean top-tier Terrans after Special, I guess you are thinking of your U-thermals. Even DeMuslim on that ladder is quite strong. I don't know that you necessarily think of Semper and some of the North American ones. So I think of DnS as a guy that on a routine basis is playing against the better Terran players and beating them pretty handily for the most part.
That's fair. The one thing I will say is Semper specifically has been playing a lot of TVP, especially for Challenger, is preparing a lot for his group, which is mainly against Puck that he was worried about. So he's been playing an absurd amount of TVP, really trying to nail that down. So I feel like this is going to be the matchup he's probably one of the most comfortable with. We'll see how things actually shape out versus DnS, though, because
and I'd love it.
NA also doesn't exactly have a huge plethora of Protoss players to practice with, so it's sometimes a little difficult.
Well, NA does have M canning, so I'd be careful with what you say.
But I mean, you don't want to just get crushed, 0-40 versus M canning and then come to an event.
That's true. That's true. It might break your will to play Terran versus Protoss. How do we feel about the maps for TVP then? Have you guys seen many interesting games on these? I think you were telling me in control earlier that you don't like the gold base on Redshift versus Terran, or versus anybody, really.
I think that was Roddy. Roddy doesn't like the gold base. I actually think as far as gold bases go, that one's one of the better ones because it's supposed to be a high-risk, high-reward kind of thing. And I like that if you do take that, the back of those minerals are just absolutely exposed to anything with range. So it gets a little bit weird there. But as far as the map pool is overall kind of concerned, it is a pretty good map pool for both races in different ways. But I do like kind of the droppability of Terran, so that bio play that Robbie was talking about earlier, where with Marauders getting buffed and that kind of play being good anyways, if you can have a good drop map, that can be strong. That being said, because it is good that way, and it has been a couple of weeks, Protoss have adjusted to the sense of like, that's what I'm facing. I'm not getting quite different attacks usually.
Yeah, I think some of the maps really open that up, like Dreamcatcher is a pretty good example. Robbie?
Yeah, I know Semper was talking a lot about how he really likes some of the current maps, especially things like Redshift you were talking about. It's a nice drop map. So I think that Semper is just so focused on that drop play and that drop harassment in the kind of late game. Semper is very much a macro player, so he's going to be trying to get up into the position where he has an economy. He can throw out 5-6 drops. It's not necessarily about keeping and preserving them. It's just about getting damage done with some of them eventually. And that's where Semper wants to get. So maybe some of the bigger maps may be good, as well as just the maps that are favorable for drops in general.
Fair enough.
How about maps you don't like as a Protoss player then for going up against Terran in this pool?
I think.
What would you veto if you were DNS?
Yeah, a lot of the pro players are going to look at the 4-player map and just kind of not like that anyways. I don't know if it's necessarily because of PvT or TvP. It's just that it adds enough RNG to it that it gets a little bit weird. We are starting to see a little bit more of the parade push style. I don't necessarily know that Semper is going to be doing that. But over in Korea, there's a lot of Widow Mines, a lot of parade push style, even in the TvP matchup coming out from like Keen and some of these other Terrans. And a lot of times when there's like a meta that's starting to work and it's beating, in particular, the top tier Protosses, Terrans kind of homogenize. Like, that's what we're doing, that's what we're going to do. So I don't know that we're going to see that, but on some of these medium-sized, smaller maps, you could be on the alert for that kind of thing.
All right. Any thoughts, maps you don't like for this series on either side?
Yeah, it gets a little bit difficult. I think, especially in North America, seems to have a lot of different impressions from what I've gathered from Europeans. Like, there's some similarities and then some differences here and there. So, in a weird way, I feel like the map vetoes are going to be pretty interesting whenever you have one of these NA versus EU players, because they just seem to have come to slightly different conclusions.
But Semper doesn't strike me as a full NA player, though. He seems to play pretty straight up most of the time.
No, he's. I mean, when we talk about full
not like a Massa type where he's going to proxy 7 games in a row.
Yeah, he's not one of those players at all. He's the opposite of Massa in that sense.
Okay.
So he's going to have very different maps that he likes.
So we're just waiting basically to bring the players up on the stage. So I'll throw you another softball, Ravi.
All right.
What about Semper is keeping him from being up there with the Special and Kelliser? What stands out to you as something that's like, why do we talk about Semper but we don't actually see him hit the end? Why didn't he finish in the finals of Challenger?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it is just about the fact that he is not full-time into StarCraft. And Challenger, of course, he did have a little bit of time with school, was kind of finally hitting his end. He got through his finals and everything, but it was maybe a week or maybe a week and a half or something. And now he's kind of had that full month of preparation time. He's just been grinding away. We see this when Semper is doing really well and he's had time, he's done with school or not focusing on it. He is doing things like in Nation Wars, he's beating like Zest and doing really, really fantastic things. But when he's busy with school, you just see him fall off. And I've seen so many NA players talk about this where they say, Semper in form could be one of the best North American players there are, but it's not really ever going to happen. Semper has said before, he never intends.
Holding him back.
Yeah.
I mean, that a lot of people bring that up, but we talk about players like Neeb, finished high school, was actually able to put all of his time into it. And,
what did he do after he finished high school? I think he won Caspa Cup.
And then he delivered. Yeah, exactly. He delivered on the promise of having that time to practice and take more time to put towards StarCraft. So,
well, since we're just killing time, it's funny because there's different players react different ways. I know that Suppy actually took a year off of Berkeley at one point in time to go full-time in StarCraft, and that was actually one of his worst performing years because the pressure of like, well, I'm going to put off school to really go full bore on this was actually one of the determining factors for why he didn't do as well. And then we've had players that, like with travel, like you go to Korea and become better, but then we had Violet years back come to North America and actually get his best results there. And it's not because North America magically has better training for that player, but it's just like they emotionally respond to that cool. So it's kind of fun seeing how these different guys go with their different environments.
Suppy is a really good example, and even a more recent example, I feel like, is Panda Bear Me, who has been full-time. He showed a lot of promise, I want to say about two and a half years ago. He goes full-time and just never really quite got the results and is still sitting there. And now he's saying, you know what, I'm going to actually go part-time because I think I'm going to put less pressure on myself, and then I'll probably be able to perform better because I'm not so stressed out about, oh, I have to make this work right now.
Pro gamer life is a tough one indeed. Semper's been an interesting player to watch because he does seem to have very solid mechanics, but doesn't strike me as aggressive as the rest of the NA Terrans are pretty okay with cheesing half the games. Like I remember in the Reaper era, you know, Kelliser and Massa were two of the dirtiest Terran players that you could go up against. But
Semper used to have a problem. It was a legitimate problem where he would never cheese. So people would just start playing super greedy around him and he'd be like, you know, well, maybe if I just play better in the late game than you, I'll still be able to overcome it. He's like, okay, no, I have to start proxying. So he started doing proxying, but it really still feels like it's at the place where he's proxying for the sake of saying, I proxied you, so now you have to respect it. And people are like, I still won that game because the proxy wasn't very good.
As compared to a player like Massa, who will get so good that he will proxy himself to make you think you're being proxied and then still end up proxying his next building.
I mean, Massa's so good at proxying that he played a best of 7 versus Neeb in a Kings of the North show match. And he told Neeb at the very beginning, I'm going to proxy you all 7 games because I can't beat you otherwise. Neeb was like, okay. And then he proxied him all 7 games and he won 4-3. Yeah.
Well, he pretty much attempted or did some variation of a proxy against Neeb in the finals of Challenger every single game. And I think he pretty much did it against Scarlet
as
in that
well,
previous match. So NA, or I guess our foreign Terran's been known for being quite aggressive. I think Thermal falls into that as well. As we're almost there, guys. Almost ready to bring the players up onto the stage. But any other final thoughts on this match? Anything else that...
Final thoughts? Or is this
final thoughts?
Is the final thoughts though?
Okay, you know what? Forget it. I don't want to hear what you guys have to say anyway, because guess what? The players are ready to be introduced onto the stage. We've got Smix. Hopefully you're not too tired of hearing our voices. Smix, you doing well up there?
I am, and I just want to say, Nathaniel, I think you and your eyebrows look great.
Wow.
I'm touched. I'm touched.
Give her a wink.
Now it is time to introduce the players for our second match of the day. It is the winner's match of Group D to see which player will qualify to group stage number 3. Please welcome Semper and DnS.
And so it begins our second series of the day. Terran versus Protoss, Canada versus France. DnS, a European Protoss I think you're very familiar with in that scene, very strong. Semper is that player on the way up. We see him in all the tournaments, but he's not quite at that level of competing with a Neve, with a Scarlet, with a major, or special, excuse me. And I'm interested to see how this one goes. Of course, you guys can let us know how you think it'll go in the chat. You can vote #DNS, #Semper. So we take Twitch chat's opinion very seriously here at the World Championship Series.
You have to.
Yeah.
A lot of really good players in there, very smart people, taking kind of time out of
They're all GM, I've heard.
Well, they've got a busy doctor schedule, and they're here kind of voting on StarCraft, and it's just amazing.
You just have that auxiliary monitor that pops up off the side of your desk where they can just watch Twitch all day.
And usually they can split their mind between 2 tasks. Like they're performing heart surgery and voting on this. They can do both. It's fine.
So we've kind of really heavily dissected this matchup already.
But what are your actual final?
I have something else to say. I will also mention that DnS, one of his biggest struggles is that he has done really well on online tournaments, but it's offline tournaments where he really has struggled to come up with the same level of results. I feel as though
players offline don't do as well as from the comfort of their own home, Pure Dragon? No, we don't have taste here, but it's nice to see that that level of analysis still exists.
Well, look, Jeff, I know that you've never really had a real competitive experience in the past, but I can tell you that...
No, not commentating with you, that's for sure.
And with that being said, I think that makes total sense. DnS comes in here. We see him in a lot of the tournaments, but he represented France at Pyeongchang at the Intel Extreme Masters, but we don't see him make those deep runs. When we talk about European Protosses, it's been a bit weird, I think, for the last year and a half, because Showtime was a player that we were like, Showtime's the big guy. Like, is this the year of Hearthstone TM, And it has been mostly about the Zerg players in Europe.
I don't want to sell Showtime too short. I mean, he did get to the finals of WCS Leipzig, so he did pretty well for himself, I would say.
He's on his way up, but I mean, like we haven't been talking as much about the Protoss players because the focus has been so heavily on the Serral, the Laser, and their stories against the Protoss.
I think
of
Serral's
America.
grabbed the limelight, and then trailing him is the story of how many Zerg we see in tournaments. They're not nearly the same dominant level as Serral. And I definitely agree with Robbie that we've seen good results from Showtime. It's not like he's fallen off the face of the earth. It's just that when you think of non-Korean StarCraft right now, everyone's excited because it's like, Serral, get your butt to GSL and make a deep run like Scarlet did not too long ago, maybe even deeper. And then for these events, I feel like the story is, can you stop Serral, which does become a little bit Zerg-centric, I suppose.
I'm interested to see if we can get more Protoss up there other than Showtime to talk about, really. And I guess... Any final thoughts we have on Semper? The young Canadian Terran. Your final thoughts.
Well,
final thoughts.
Of course, final thoughts. I know that he's feeling really good. His girlfriend is out here, Poison. She was playing in the bracket as well, so she's cheering him on. I think I just maybe heard her screaming in the audience because
playing StarCraft through significant others, great way to strengthen a relationship for sure.
Yeah. She makes a lot of DTs. I'm a big fan.
I'm not as big a fan now that I know he's not single anymore. Fear Dragon, so you just did that for me.
Well,
sorry to ruin your day in Control.
If he's single, I'm like all about
it. Have you ever played versus Semper in Control? Have you hit him on the ladder?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, but he's a lot better than I am, so it's something that I don't remember very well because it's like, let's get past that.
I'm not high up enough to hit him.
All right.
Yeah, but no. I'd imagine he's one of the guys that plays a lot on the European ladder, right? Eastern Canada.
Definitely plays a lot on the European ladder. All the East Coast NA players tend to play a lot on the European ladder. All the West Coast play in Korea.
Yeah.
He's got what it takes. It could be, it's. I feel like we have to do that thing.
I like this matchup.
The WCS caster have to be like, it could be possible. It's possible.
Yeah, but I don't think this is our typical.
Though.
I don't think this is our typical. I'd say DnS is the favorite, but this isn't our typical DnS smash him.
Really?
Yeah.
I actually would say that I think Semper's got a really good shot. I don't want to give him
A really
complete
good shot?
favoritism.
All right.
I would say like 45-55.
Got that.
Semper 45.
55.
What? They agree? It's
that is
kind
way
of
too
close.
Oh!
Look at you in the public
Twitch
opinion, except for
chat.
it's the other way around.
Twitch
But I mean,
chat says
they're all
Semper.
GMs, though.
Yeah.
That means it's literally impossible for DNS to win. Twitch chat says so. There you go, guys.
There you go.
I just
Thank
hope
you
for
guys
good
for your
games. I
feedback.
just want good games. That's what
Just
I want.
good games. Yeah, ideally. I want to see Marauders. I want to see a lot of them.
Nate, I want to hear your opinion.
Are we waiting
Who do
again,
you
by the way?
think is
As the
gonna-
host,
Yeah, as the host.
my opinion.
We have enough time for it now.
What is going on that stage? They're like, we're going to introduce them, but give them 25 minutes to get up here. They're
You
up
know-
here now. Everyone slow down.
I think whoever's sitting at near the PC where Snoot was like, why is everything remount to building Queens? Like, the Hive's not there. Nothing else.
Things
Just-
move at a slower pace in Austin. It's just pretty chill. Everyone's got
Yeah,
they're kind of
we're
putting
not
their
in a
hats
rush.
down. Leipzig, they ran it. German efficiency.
Yeah.
Get them on stage. Are they playing it? Why aren't they playing?
Why hasn't In Control introduced the players?
That's right.
Yeah.
In Austin, they're like, you know what? Let them do what they're going to do. Okay?
So you get ready for this.
We play some StarCraft at the end of this segment. All the better for it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Hopefully you're all having a nice time out here in Austin. It's quite hot outside, but we've got a lot of
Wow.
people that have come in here to chill
Yeah.
with us with these awesome
That's
StarCraft
smooth.
games.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's well done.
Chill with
Yeah.
us.
There seems to be quite a few folks out there. Hope you're all
We
having a
did it
nice
again,
day.
by the way.
Yeah.
Robbie.
Well, I mean, it's always the host has to wear the different color.
Robbie and I have like the same closet that we just
You
just
two
miss each other.
own all the same shirts.
I-
Do you want the truth? I actually just looked up and saw that we were both in it. I had 4 shirts. I
Yeah.
could have matched with anyone.
You actually like hit a button. It's like a Google shirt and just like changes the color. Anyways, that's what we're talking about now. Because
Yeah. So the players are setting it's settings, so you're just getting everything
Settings
set up,
for now.
hotkeys
All right.
and whatnot. That's the official report that's coming. You know,
What are your favorite settings?
favorite settings.
no, guys, come on. We got better content than that.
We can do better than that.
Fear
Tell
Dragon,
me-
I'm putting that down.
All
That's-
right,
no,
all right.
not
So
on that one.
now go for the. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of the other players in this tournament
Yes.
that you guys like. Give me your favorite. Who do you like the most? I assume you'll go with an NA player, right?
Everyone's gonna say Cyril. Go for the perspective. Who can beat Cyril?
Okay, so the players that I'm... Yeah, I mean, Neve. Neve is the obvious one that everyone is always on the lookout for. Yeah, you know what? Neve has been looking really, really solid lately. He had a bit of a rocky start. If, like, you look at Neve a month and a half ago, you're like, Neve, okay, you're looking a little shaky and stuff. You look at Neve past 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I think he's looking really, really solid.
So you looked at the Thundershaft a week and a half ago, and you said this is looking kind of shaky.
No, a month and a half. He said a month and a half ago.
Month and a half.
I looked at the Thundershaft about a month and a half ago, and I said, I think this can go the distance.
A lot of people that peer down the Thundershaft don't make it back, so it's kind of cool that you were able to do that.
Yeah. I like that we had that build-up for Challenger going over that last month-ish before we came out here to
Yeah.
Austin. Neeb did look very good in those matches. I think the funniest story of Challenger was he was playing so well and so clean, and then in the final match, Masa kind of dragged him down into that full NA stage.
It got
where
dirty.
Every game was just so awkward, and it did go the whole distance. But I don't think that that's something that
Yeah.
he should be too concerned about here.
That's
Well,
like
we'll
the
see.
NA rule, right? Is that any NA player can just completely screw with another NA player.
Yeah.
I like the flip side of this too, though. I mean, from the perspective of who can beat Cyril, from that WCS final and Challenger, we had Euthermal play some pretty good games, but overall got beat. I believe it was 4-0 or 4-1. It was
Yeah.
Either way.
He
Either way.
had,
Yeah, yeah.
he had
It's
the
a
rough match where he
one-sided
has to
match.
play Protoss.
But Euthermal after said, and this is kind of controversial, but he said, I'm usually favored against him. I can beat him. I'm sorry that it wasn't closer.
Now, I would
People
love-
laughed,
I would
but
love to
statistically,
see
he actually is one of the best guys to potentially take down Cyril. And they're both here right now. And Euthermal's saying he's feeling pretty good. So I'm hoping that we see a convergence.
Roddy says Euthermal's looking pretty good,
Of
too.
course he does.
So-
Roddy says every Dutchman looks good.
Yeah.
But they all do, to be fair.
Yeah, they do.
They do look good.
I think that's an interest. I think that's.
Handsome country.
I do think that's the biggest story of the tournament is who can beat Cyril. He looked so good.
You're Marine also as well.
destroyed in Challenger. You're a Marine?
I mean, we were talking about Challenger. He was the only one that actually took the games off
Yeah.
of Cyril, and he's looking so strong right now. There was an interview with, of course, good old Wax Angel, who's sitting somewhere over there
Wow.
behind the scenes. But he was talking with Wax Angel, and he was saying, you know, I'm really just enjoying being a streamer. It's been fun. Competition. I'm just enjoying being a streamer. I'm like, okay, dude, you're one of the
All
best
right.
Barons in all of your.
I hate to cut you off.
Shut
I love
him
you, but
down.
we
Shut him
actually
down,
have
Nate.
a game ready for you guys.
Do it.
Let's get into our next series. Terran versus Protoss. It's DNS versus Semper. Let's get this going.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our second best of 3 of the day, coming to you from group stage number 2. Let's go ahead and start things off by introducing the 2 fabulous players you see right there on your screen in the upper left-hand corner. Playing Protoss in the blue. Make some noise for DnS.
And down here in the bottom right-hand side, the Canadian representative coming down here from Montreal to show what Terran skills he's got. In the red, it is Semper.
A lot of cheers for our North American representative here, and I love the story that our fabulous desk host and company set up for us here. Semper, he's looking very good coming into this, and for DnS, he did represent France at Pyeongchang, but unfortunately ran into, I think it was SOS there that kind of stopped him short there. So I've been watching him play online, and he looks pretty strong there, but how does he perform offline? And really the same question here for Semper too.
The big question that always comes up with these up-and-coming players, you know, turning those online performances, those, you know, once in a while amazing runs in their own home in the dark when there's no cameras on them. Bringing that to the main stage is so difficult, and I do think DnS is at the cusp, you know, getting knocked out at Pyeongchang by SOS. I don't think that was necessarily him being unable to bring his A game. He was just playing one of the best Protoss versus Protoss players in the world.
Absolutely. And, you know, now he gets to show where he fares as far as the WCS Circuit Protoss players in the world go. Start things off, of course, here in group stage 2. Now, both of these players made it out of group stage number 1 by 2-0ing their entire groups. They looked pretty flawless, and they also both won their first matchups here in group stage 2. So they're coming into this about as hot as they can, and it is a good matchup for casting here in Austin because it is also as hot as it can be.
Oh, yeah. There has been a few buckets of sweat, I think, out of my pools exploring the city the last few
we'll
days.
have more
a lot of fun
before the event's over.
But it's actually so nice and cool in this venue. So hats off to that American air conditioning.
Yeah,
I
air
love
conditioning.
it every time I'm here.
We invented that over here. We'll get it over to you guys there.
Yeah,
eventually.
not so big on that down under. You know, we like it sweaty, and I'm sure there's going to be a sweaty action match here as well.
Getting started early, Pig. I like to see the consistency. For all of you out there that want us to actually talk about the game, there hasn't been a whole lot to talk about until one day all that changed.
A big, beautiful, dark shrine going down in the base. The Reaper goes down to the Stalker. Semper is blind on the map. He does not have scouting. Also, an Adept coming in is going to poke around and be annoying, and that's actually a Widow Mine first coming out here for Semper. So no Cyclone or Hellion means it's going to be a little bit frustrating to get rid of that Adept, but DnS actually just going to walk home, and he's still got that probe in the corner of the map. Blink starting up as well. This is your traditional DT expand. I'd love to see DnS go into Blink DTs afterwards. Is he maybe it's like, hey, SOS knocked me out at Pyeongchang. Now I'm just going to kind of channel my SOS. I'm going to try and bring that build out. But realistically, this is a very standard expand build. You want to try to run in with 2 DTs. If you get one past the depots into the main base, that's the dream, because then suddenly you're hitting both mineral lines. The Terran doesn't have an engineering bay and a turret up, they're in big trouble. And I don't think there's an engineering bay even started just yet.
No, there hasn't been one on the production tab at all, and this could, like you said, if the DT does get in there, be a little bit rough. I like that he did go for both Blink and DTs. We've just got to see him mix it up and maybe upgrade that for the DTs as well. So there is now a engineering bay on the way, right as our 2 DTs come up. So Semper, realistically, is really just hitting every timing that he needs to.
I mean, it's perfect play so far, but if he drops that mule on that natural, he's in huge trouble. Watch this energy bar on this natural expansion. If he drops that mule, he will not have a scan ready for this. Is he watching? Is he going to see the blur coming into his base? He's watching!
Now, perfect scan there, the instantaneous takedown on both Dark Templar.
Wow, that Widow Mine barely snatching that DT down. A turret goes down immediately. A fantastic hold there by Semper. You know, a lot of players would have been beelining that medevac across the map. but he said, you know what? Everybody's opening up with a fast blink. Let's just play it safe, play it defensive, and that was the perfect call against this opening.
It really doesn't get much better than that. Maybe if he had also gotten the Widow Mine to come off cooldown and take out the third DT, that's the cherry on top. But, I mean, he's also going to find the proxy pylon right there, and really is just very well aware of everything going on the map. And for DnS, he is actually unaware of this drop that is rapidly approaching. Branding there. His third base that is just about on the way.
Yeah, it is definitely going to be heading towards that third charge on the way. He does have a Robo up as well, and double Forge going down behind this, so a lot of tech coming down at once. DnS is a little bit unit light right now. This drop going to come in the natural.
A big blink, and it's enough. The last hit on the drop takes it out.
Ouch, that is nasty. I thought he was going to get out of there for a second. I was like, there's no way those Stalkers are firing that second shot.
Yeah, no hesitation on the blink in there. DnS really pulled the trigger at the perfect time, and that's a nice way to fire back after kind of getting stopped in your tracks with that early opener.
And he's really going to be playing with a lot of vision. You can see in the main base of DnS, he's actually got kind of pylons on the edges of his base. He's got observers now coming across the map as well. So lots of things here to kind of spot any drops entering his base ahead of time. And he's continuing to build those observers. So he's going to have absolute map vision. He's already up above 60 workers. And this is when the gateway explosion comes, where because DnS has the vision, he says, look, I don't have to really worry about an attack. Only now are you moving out and clearing up a bit of vision, but by the time you get across the map, I'm gonna have charge, 8 gateways, 1-1 when that finishes, and that's where the Protoss player just gets so much power. And I feel like this has got to be kind of like make or break for Semper. He doesn't have a third command center, right?
Yeah, I don't see a third CC on the way. No, he is just going to start to macro up here, and I agree with what you said, Pig. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be enough. Now, the biggest thing that gets talked about in PvT right now are Marauders, and sure, they're going to do pretty well against the Stalkers, but there's going to be a lot of 1-1 charge lots coming his way.
Yeah, scanning down the other observer, those Stalkers were looking for a bit of a pickoff. They weren't able to find it just yet. There we go. They are going to try and take out a Widow Mine. A nice snipe there. But is there enough Zealots? 1-1 is not quite finished yet.
Oh, perfect poke up the ramp. He one-shots that low HP Stalker on top, but he also, with that scan, is going to see the entirety of the composition heading his way, but not the Immortal. I don't think he spotted that one.
Oh, these spotting pylons everywhere on the map. Even after losing his observers, DnS has so much map vision. Third command center is now on the way behind this. And look at that, baits out a couple of Widow Mine shots, but links back to dodge it. DnS also realizes, I've got 1-1, I've got charge lots. He is not going to let himself get bullied back. DnS immediately reasserts map control, and he says, look, if I can continue to protect this side of the map, if I can get my 2-2 finish, I know you're on a timer. Semper has to get something done, and he has to get it done soon.
Wow, yeah, this is a very strong position for DnS to be in as long as he can remain vigilant with his defense. He did have those observers out on the map, but I don't think they caught this double drop coming in from the north.
Yeah, he's going to go for a bit of the classic multi-prong aggression. I think there's a lot of Stalkers waiting in the main for a Doom drop in case he does try to bounce there. At the same time, he's going to hit there. Yeah, big squad, even a DT in the mix there. And the drop is going to come and hit the back of that natural.
Vu? Is it coming in here? Oh, he blinks to the opposite location at the third base. And now the charge lot's coming in. The double drop does get a chance to unload, but will it be able to escape?
The army is going to push forward to the front here. Semper, I mean, he's opportunistically trying to find an angle, but I feel like his army is too small. Most of his units are back at home reinforcing. It's actually been so long since Semper's brought units across the map, and even with a nice Immortal snipe, I don't know if that's going to be enough here.
You're right. That's a great pick off to start, but it's this that is not going to work off. The double drop completely shut down, and Semper having to stutter step and stem his way away from DnS's army, pick up, get away, and he loses everything realistically except the forces in those 2 medevacs.
Yeah, I mean, it's always so hard as Terran to try and find your way in like this, and at the same time have your reinforcements so slow to get across the map. And Semper now is kind of forced back. Now he's got the second engineering bay in the armory, but he's only got that +1 armor upgrade started for now. So we're going to have 2-2 versus 1-1 upgrades.
No.
And that is a big, big factor. There's a few Widow Mines which will help equalize the charge Zealots. A couple of Liberators coming in as well, but Semper is quite far behind, and DnS will probably be looking for a killing blow here. I can't imagine him not wanting to make use of such a huge Zealot Stalker army right now.
Absolutely. I mean, when you are expanding, especially if it's an orbital, obviously you want to put on maybe a little bit of pressure and expand behind that. But now he has to be the recipient of a lot of pressure while he expands. There are a lot of Widow Mines behind this. They are going to explode on the charge slots and take them out very nicely. That's a lot of Marauders versus just Stalkers here. But things like the Guardian Shield, when it comes back up there, and the Immortal in the back are just going to do so much work here. The SCVs pulled off the line. Can they stall in time?
There's actually no Guardian Shield until the latter phase of that fight because most of the energy was used on the force fields. The SCV pull was fantastic by Semper, but with the Zealot warp in, I think the numbers are just there. Those two Immortals anchoring the back of that push, and the last Marauders just disappeared.
Oh, so close there at the end. I thought just barely Semper was going to hang on. He's sacking SCVs, and that makes this fight look a little bit more even. So maybe Semper can hold on here, but at what cost, right? 30, almost 35, 40 SCVs are going to go down here eventually, and this is critical damage from our French Protoss.
Yeah, the point of defending a push is, of course, to protect your workers. If you've pulled all your workers into the front line and you still haven't managed to overwhelm, it's not looking good for you as the Terran player.
Write that one down in your build order notebooks, guys. Defend the workers, kill the army. All right, those are two steps that Semper couldn't really pull off there, and that's going to give us GG in game one. It goes to DnS.
Such good defense from the French Protoss player. After his DTs did not work out, losing those first two DTs is definitely not a good way to start things out. And I often feel like the Protoss player kind of ends up in this slightly awkward position. Semper said, you know what, let's just go for the most classic game plan. It was like 3 barracks, biomine, push out across that map, but Acid Plant's a large map. DnS, he set up the pylons, the observers, and I feel like maybe in that sort of situation, Semper just doing a sharper attack, pushing earlier, kind of before the upgrades are done, may have worked out. He doesn't know that, though. He doesn't see all the information. We get to see that DnS is focusing on the vision. For Semper, he's like, no, I'm going to find my way in the main. Oh, wait, there's a pylon here. Okay, I'll pick up. I'll go to this way. Oh, wait, there's an observer. Let's scan that. Every time he tried to snap some of DnS's vision, DnS was putting down more pylons, throwing out more observers. He bought enough time, and once the upgrades were there, it was a huge advantage for the Protoss.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked good for Semper there, totally stopping the opener, the Dark Templar, in its tracks early on, and I was thinking, okay, well, maybe you can get damage done off of this, but no, very vigilant on that defense, and DnS just fires right back, takes out the drops coming in, even the double drop follow-up, shut down immediately. He uses that information to deal with the Widow Mines coming out with that. Like you said, actually, during the cast, Semper's force out on the map was just a little bit too small. He tries to expand behind that, but his army is still too small and winds up going down there. So the formulation of a cheeky smile there on DnS's face is he's got to feel pretty good about taking game one against Semper.
There was a slight curl to the side of his mouth.
I saw it there.
You could see it. Yeah, he's like, wait, no, it's just game one. Let's hold it in for
It's
now.
not hard to see the smile on our audience's faces. So I hope you all enjoyed game number one of Semper versus DnS. I'm excited for game number two. It looks good for DnS, but Semper, I think recently was talking about how he has been practicing a lot of TVP with a couple of other guys that we saw in WCS Challenger. I think it was Future and maybe Epic, talking to them a lot about how to crack this matchup open. What do you think about PvT, especially now that the changes come through?
Is it though?
Fastest WCS. I would agree with that guy in the crowd. So big fan of speed in all shapes and sizes.
I love Fast and Furious StarCraft games. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting matchup at the moment. I think what's most fascinating, and we're going to see more of this with players like Special, I think, later on in the tournament, is TVP lately, who are the leaders in the matchup? There's one guy every Terran player looks to, it's Maru, right? Just play like Maru is the meme. That's what they tell you when you're complaining about losing your matches in Gold League. People come into the forums and they say, just play like Maru, and you say, thanks for the advice. But realistically, what have we seen from Maru? Who else is a leader in that matchup? TY. Two of the best Terran versus Protoss players in the world are often doing these very, very committed one base kind of, not one base, but one barracks, one factory, one starport pushes. So they're building often Banshees, but they're mixing it up. Sometimes they're committing to the cloak, sometimes they're canceling cloak, and then they're forcing an overreaction. They're squeezing out a Raven. We're seeing non-stop marine production, adding in some siege tanks and just pushing with like bunkers and siege tanks on third bases. There's a whole variety of these odd kind of very committed pushes where the Terran sacrifices their production. They get much later barracks, later command centers, and they're just looking to kind of keep flying in with Liberators, keep coming in with these oddly timed Siege Tank Marine pushes. And it's all about, I think, finding your way into the Protoss' comfort zone. This game here, I feel like DnS was just like, all right, I do my DTs, doesn't work. You're going to do some sort of big bio medevac pressure off 3 racks. And up to that point, what did DnS have for defense? He had like 5 Stalkers, managed to snap the drop, and then he was like, just build upgrades, make charge, make observers. And then he explodes into gateways because he knows that the Terran isn't going to hit him until X timing, and he's massively greedy up to that point. So often what we see is Terran players saying, look, I can't let the Protoss just know what's going to happen. I'm going to mix it up and really surprise you with something odd in the early game.
Yeah, I mean, we saw the attempted surprise in the early game from DnS didn't work at all. And then Semper, you know, you could tell kind of what his mindset was. Like, okay, I stopped this. And then he wasn't looking towards a third base at that point. He was just trying to go out there and be aggressive. It totally got shut down. But it's DnS's response that really just shows me that he is really on point in this matchup. You know, we used to talk about out in Korea, where I've been for a while, we saw Stats as such a defensive Protoss player for a long time, and in the face of getting any tiny little advantage, he would just hunker down and go as not quite turtle mode, but he would realize that there's not a whole lot of pressure he has to deal with right then. And as long as he just stays alive, he's going to compound that advantage, doing what a great forefather of StarCraft once said, and that is getting ahead after getting ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that.
I mean, he's such a master at that as well, isn't he, Stats? And this is what a lot of Protoss players like to do in this matchup especially is, you know, just push it to that next stage. If they sense a really big advantage with the upgrades like in that last game, they'll go for the push. They'll say, let's just commit and go for it. But otherwise, there are a lot of stages mapped out. There's Add Storm, there's Add Colossi, and there's, you know, of course, the old Warp Prism sending tons of Zealots and DTs in your flank when the Terran moves out. And it's definitely a kind of complicated matchup. There's a lot of different things going on. And now we are finally going to get into map number 2. It's going to be on one of my favorite new maps, Dreamcatcher.
Oh boy, well let's go ahead and get into it. WCS Austin, make some noise for your blue Protoss player, DnS.
And down here in the bottom right-hand side, the Canadian Terran representing North America in Rise Esports, it is Semper.
Saw a 6 stat come up there on your screen. Since the map pool changed over, Semper is 21-8 in his PvT or TVPs, and he's looking pretty good. Now, what is this little guy up to out on the map, Pig?
Is this a 3x Reaper? 2x Reaper, maybe? I'm not sure.
I'm always a little bit confused about early scouting timings because he can't just run in there and make sure that you can delay.
eBay block,
yeah,
right,
he is going to delay with that. Okay. Just going to go ahead and build an eBay block. Like you don't really see the one rack proxy that often.
Yeah, I was like, what is going on? And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. I haven't seen an engineering bay block in a week or two, and somehow I forgot that build existed. Very good way to just upset the Protoss. You know, DNS's probe doesn't see the SCV coming, gets down there with 400 minerals in the bank and goes, oh, damn. Immediately has to go for this. He hasn't put down a Cybercore yet. DnS very slow to react with that Cybercore. And that's really nasty. You want to go for that faster Cybercore in this scenario because you know your Nexus is delayed for a long time. So a bit of a slow response there from DnS is going to just slowly tech into those gases and start to clear out the engineering bay with that Zealot.
Oh, yeah, one of the hallmarks of newer players when you see them play is as soon as they have any little tiny thing disrupt their build, everything goes terribly for them. They don't macro, they just get totally thrown off. And it looked a little bit like that there. Oh no, I can't build my Nexus with 400 minerals. What do I do? The answer is, of course, throw it on your Cybercore, but he just was a little bit delayed. And sure, that's going to get cleared up, but here comes a Reaper that deals perfectly with probes and Zealots in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah, just a little bit frustrating. You know, it's not going to be absolutely massively game-ending, but actually, if he can get that probe before the Stalker comes out, Nexus does go down.
Ooh.
Okay, good play there by DnS.
If he could have delayed that again, that's the tilt right there. Where you're just not allowed to take a Nexus this game. Then you see 8 gateways come down, and he's just totally done with it. But we are going to see the Nexus come up. So a substantial delay still that's going to put the Nexus timing a little bit behind this command center that's coming up from Semper.
Yeah, of course, the command center does get delayed. I love the fast bunker here from Semper. He cleaned up the scouting probe, immediately put this bunker down because he knows this is a fast Zealot Stalker, and his Reaper is going to try and slow that down from getting across the map. Semper is going to just try and defend here. Reaper and 2 Marines should do a good job at holding on against this, and is going up to the factory behind that as well. So we'll be going for a very standard transition, but hey, that bunker's not quite finished. Nice Marine micro from Semper so far, but 1 Marine does fall. The Stalker wants to get another one, doesn't quite manage to get it. Marine for his Zealot, that is a trade. Semper is happy to take the Reaper.
He's actually going to get the Stalker. Wow. MVP Reaper, 2 kills already. He's going the distance. This Reaper, he's been running touchdowns back and forth and back and forth, and that's an inappropriate analogy because I don't know how T-Sports works, but he was really getting his mileage out on that Reaper. 2 kills, very important.
Indeed. And that Reaper is going to come in. It wants to, of course, back out the Oracle.
This is his 4th tour of duty. He is all the way back in there, checking to make sure there's no sneaky shenanigans in the back of the base. But finally, he is going to take the hard way back home and get taken out in the end.
Yeah, and I like where Semper's production's at with a well-timed 3rd barracks here. Is going for an early Viking and a Widow Mine, so of course just wanting to sit defensive, make sure he doesn't take any damage. This really is Semper's style. Doesn't want to take any risks. There's a lot of things that can come out from a Stargate player. Some people very eager to get across the map and punish the fast 3rd base. I wonder if Semper's going to try to maybe mix in a Cyclone and do some sort of push on that 3rd.
Ooh. That eBay is a little late, my friend. How much anti-air is there in the main? There's a Widow Mine. Oh, and a Viking. Okay,
yeah.
So I was a little bit worried there, and then I saw Mr. Viking come up, and I felt a whole lot better.
I mean, there was a Widow Mine in the mineral line, hidden underneath the mule as well. It's kind of, hiding under that SCV. So it was, I think, a good choice for DnS to not dive in. You lose the Oracle, it's such a pain. But I think the natural probably just only had a few Marines in it. So, good defense for Semper so far. No real openings.
Good defense there by Semper. We highlighted DNS's defense in game number 1, but this looks a whole lot different. We're not seeing Semper move out on the map. He hasn't shown that he wants to be aggressive or drop at all. Both players, or at least DNS, is up to his 3rd base right now, just now starting that. What is Semper up to? Because it doesn't look like he has expansion in mind. Taking one for the team. The Oracle goes down, but the Widow Mine will get picked up and taken out.
Yeah, I mean, that's very nice taking out the Oracle.
No, not again.
Though. The Oracle, of course, the map hacks of Protoss, as most Terran players call it. They go, yeah, oh, you get to see my army everywhere? You just put a tag on it and you see everything? Oh, yeah, that's fair. Terran players, of course, never too happy on that one. Gonna force the
No, you are not allowed to go down. It's a wild ride there for the Viking as he does land it and he gets picked up right.
Has Semper seen the 3rd base? I'd love to see that. Looks like Semper, yeah. So this is one thing that Semper doesn't realize is that this was such a quick 3rd. It was 1 gate into 3rd base, 1 gate Stargate into that. And so I think once again, we see kind of Semper tried to get under the skin of DNS, and I think he did in the opening, but there hasn't been any attempt to put on follow-up pressure. And I think he's given DNS a little bit of a window to kind of get back into that comfortable position where, check out the gateway explosion back at DNS's base. He's got like 6 gateways going down. He's going to go up to 7, 8 gateways. 3rd mineral line's fully saturated. He's got charge and +1 armor. He's continuing to build Phoenix and Zealots. And the thing is, there's no fast 3rd on the way. There's no double upgrades for Semper. Semper is very locked into a 2-base push, and there is going to be a ton of charge lots and Phoenix to greet this. It's all going to be about the Widow Mine Marine, and this one push, once again, is going to need to do big damage. Semper has everything relying on this push breaking through DNS's 3rd.
Yeah, we're not going to see a 3rd command center for a while. This push is very, very important. We talked about the stats and how much Semper's been preparing specifically for this matchup on these maps. So you have to know that he's put a lot of thought and effort into this. But thought and effort, like hopes and prayers, may not actually be enough to give him the win here.
Yeah, not necessarily. I love the way that Phoenix did actually just delay the push out as well. That was so well done, but ooh, almost snaps them. Semper does do a bunch of damage to the Phenai. but he's got to push across. He's running kind of out of time. And I mean, actually, I guess on the other hand, you could argue here that if Semper doesn't want to commit, it's like at this point, maybe it's better to just fall back. You're up against Zealots and Phoenix. This isn't a long-term composition. Maybe just take the third, continue the upgrades. But the thing is, Semper right now is not getting any upgrades, and that's the sort of stuff he needs to be focusing on. He needs to get that third down as quickly as possible. He needs to make sure he's furthering his later stage of the game and getting up that Widowmine Liberator count, because there's one thing which Zealots are not good against, and that is Widowmines. Phoenix also kind of bad versus Widowmines. If he can get up to like 13 or 14 mines, DNS's army is not going to look that scary.
Right, especially. There's one situation where the Phoenix fly over the bio and drag friendly fire from the Widow Mines in there, and that, of course, looks hilarious, but realistically, you can't expect that to be the way that you use your Phoenix to turn around a big bio mine composition. So, man, this is just really not the game that I thought we were going to see. I thought it was going to be a big two-base push, and then Semper goes in and either wins or loses from that. But he did have that realization, like you said, Pig, to pull back and say, well, maybe third base is the way to go. But that might actually be pretty difficult to get up and running here on Dreamcatcher.
Yeah, I mean, and part of the problem is there's still no second engineering bay and armory. So I feel like Semper still feels a pressure and a need to push into his opponent. He doesn't actually know it's single upgrades. I hope he's been clicking on that Zealot and checking, because that would tell him, you know what, I'm not that far behind in upgrades. I can play a longer game. The fear for me right now is that his army's too spread apart. And against something very quick like Phoenix Zealot, it might just be able to jump on one section of his army, shut it down, quickly rotate, clean up the other part. Semper going for a very risky maneuver, a triple medevac doom drop into the main base while the rest of his army rotates onto the third.
That's a lot of Zealots on the other side. Widow Mines, though, fare pretty well against it. He only has like 3 of them there. They were split up from earlier, and that means that the Phoenix aren't necessarily able to straight up deal with the drop in his main, and even though the the push at the third base has been cleaned up, is this enough? That's the friendly fire I was talking about.
Traitors! Oh man, that was brutal. And the Dane army just got hunted down by those charge Zealots, and that's the threat. We talked about the fast-moving composition, right? The Zealots just moved over those Widow Mines. There was not the critical amount of units on that right-hand side. And now, Semper is in a dangerous point, because if there's one thing Zealot Phoenix loves, it's low supply engagements. It's these like middle 120, 150 supply. And the thing is, when you're at that point, your army is not big enough to just shut down those melee units before they reach you. Add to that, DNS is transitioning to Colossi and Stalkers. He is in a splendid position in this game.
He absolutely is. Back at home, Semper has I don't want to say overstimmed army, but it's just not the size he needs. The charge lots charge in. There's no mine shots to stop them. The SCVs won't last forever against the charge lots running in. And with the Phoenix picking everything up on the ground, DNS is crushing through Semper's army.
Operation Worker Shield did not work for Semper defending this third base. The upgrades are too good. The charge lot count is too good. DNS with a spectacular game.
GG DNS with a 2-0 victory over Semper to start his run, or continuous run, now up 2-0 in Group Stage 2.
You know, he's taken that #1 French rating spot on Aligulac recently, and he's proving it here. It's not just an online king anymore. He's a player who's delivering at these LAN tournaments. He's starting to really just level up his game. All that practice in Korea paying off. Semper not looking bad by any means at all, and he's going to have another shot, of course, in the deciding match in that group, going up against the winner of Future and Raze.
Now, that's going to do it for our matchup here. Let's go ahead and throw it to Sue on stage and hear what DNS has to say.
Thank you very much, Rapid. Congratulations, DNS. You went through Group Stage 1. Now you just went through Group Stage 2. That has to feel pretty damn good here in Austin.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, actually.
All right, well, let's talk about the series against Semper. We got some applause here from the fans in Austin as well. It was a 2-0 over Semper. Did you expect that it would go as straightforward as it did, or did you expect more of a fight?
I haven't really played Semper in a while, because usually I play him against him in the French tournaments. But I haven't played him in a really long time, so I didn't really know his level, but I was quite confident to win too, yeah.
And how have you been doing? Because I know that we saw you at a couple of LANs earlier on in the year, and since then hasn't been as many LANs other than Nation Wars. So how have you been personally?
Pretty good. Like, I won a French LAN last week. Did top 2 in PTSL in Vancouver as well. So I think I'm in a pretty good shape, but I need to confirm here. So we'll see what happens.
All right, last question before I let you go. Now you're going to be moving on towards group stage 3. You're currently 8-1 now, so are you feeling pretty good moving forward against whoever you might face?
Yeah, I'm always feeling confident regardless of my opponent. I would like to dodge like few players, obviously like Cyril, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think a lot of players would agree with you on that. Congratulations again. Best of luck in group stage number 3. Let's head back to Nathanius.